Welcome to Translating Interview Speak, what your interviewer really wants to know. This is taken from our book. We're Barbara Limmer and Laura Brown, and we want to help you have the best interview possible. We have a lot of years of experience helping other people, and we want to help you get your next job. Let's talk about what we're going to cover in today's video. This is in part 2 of the book, chapter 2. We're going to talk about common questions and special situations. One of the most common questions that you will hear is, tell me about yourself. Now, not all interviews start this way, but most of them really do. And so it's very important for you to be prepared to answer this question. So let's talk about what the translation is so you really understand what they're looking for. So the translation is, I'd like to get to know you a bit and give you an opportunity to share what you want me to know. So this is what the interviewer is thinking. Also, what they want to know is, are there any red flags in your answer? Are you prepared for this? Because if you're not prepared to answer this, they're going to think, maybe you're not really that interested in this job. If you were interested, you'd be prepared. Also, do you get to the point and ramble? If you spend 10 minutes answering this question, it's a big mistake. Because really what you want to do is answer this in 30 to 60 seconds. This should be short. Now, I made this mistake early on in my career. I spent too much time on this. You want to be very specific about what you say. First, you want to thank them and say something brief to build rapport. If you haven't already, and maybe you already have, something that connects you to them, the company, or the job. So if you were on LinkedIn and you see that you both live in the same state, or you both went to the same college or something like that, you can make a comment about it. And then you get into the meat of the answer. And the meat of the answer is naming a few of your skills that relate to this position, and then picking one or two accomplishments that you're really proud of that directly relate to this position. That's why it's so important to prepare this in advance, so your answer is really focused on this job. And what you're really trying to get across is why you're so interested in this company and this specific position. And so that's how you end up the answer to this.
So the next question that you've got to be prepared for is, why are you looking for a job? Or why are you in the job market at this time? And the translation for this question, here's what the interviewer is thinking. Are there any red flags in your past, such as performance problems or personality issues? And are you going to badmouth your last employer or manager? So let's talk about how to answer this question. Now, in our last session, we talked about the negative sandwich model, and here is a great opportunity to actually put it to use. So you start with the positive, saying something positive about your current job or your last job. For example, you really enjoyed the company, the people you worked with, you're really proud of what you accomplished there. It's very important to start on a positive. Then you go into the negative, which is the business reason for either your leaving or you're deciding to look for another job, such as things like cost cutting or reorganization or a recent merger or acquisition. And, you could say, based on this new structure or org chart, there's very little room for future growth. So that is directly answering, why are you looking, or why have you left? But you end on a positive, and then you say what you're looking for next. Why are you so excited about this next chapter of your career? And specifically, why are you excited about talking to them about this job and their company, showing that you've done your research on their company? So here's another negative question that's extremely common. What are your weaknesses? Here's how to translate that. What it really means is, are you going to be real and honest and candid, or are you going to give a typical BS answer by attempting to disguise a strength as a supposed weakness? Are you someone who has both the confidence and humility to admit that you're not perfect? And will we be able to work around your weaknesses in this job, or are they going to end up causing everyone problems? So before we talk about how to answer this question, let's talk about how not to answer. And by the way, these are answers I have heard numerous times throughout the years. First one is I get frustrated by others who don't work as hard as me. Here's what I think when I hear that. Sorry, buddy, that's really not a weakness. Don't give me the answer that I've been reading about for decades. All the other interview books say to use this as your answer. Here's another very common answer. Oh, I'm a perfectionist. Yeah, right. That's the number one BS answer. In fact, I wish that I had $1 every single time I've heard that. Now, here's one that has cropped up in the last few years. A lot of people have started to say, in response to this weakness question, work-life balance is one of my weaknesses. And here's what I think when I hear that. So let me get this straight. You used to work long hours, but now that you're interviewing with me, your plan is to leave early every day? No, that's not going to make me want to hire you. So now let's talk about how you should answer this. First of all, you do want to listen to the specific question because sometimes people ask for one weakness, like what is your greatest weakness or your primary weakness? Other times they ask the plural version of this. What are your weaknesses? In fact, I've had a number of clients get asked specifically for 3 weaknesses. So you've got to be ready for that. So, how do you answer it? Well, you've got 2 options. The first one is to go back in time, something that you struggled with or that didn't come easily to you, and what have you done to improve in that area? The other option is to take one of your strengths, but recognize that under certain circumstances, that strength can actually be a weakness. And what do you do to compensate for that tendency? Use the negative sandwich model, as we just walked through, and recognize that self-knowledge actually makes you a better candidate. And by admitting you're not perfect and giving a real and authentic answer instead of a BS answer, you've got a tremendous opportunity to build rapport with your interviewer, which is always a good thing. So let's give some examples. So the first example, going back in time using that negative sandwich model, would sound something like this. I'm really proud of my ability to do X, but that wasn't always the case. In fact, earlier in my career, I really struggled when faced with X. Or I had a mentor who gave me feedback on X. And what I did to work on that was this. And now what I do is this. So here's that other option, starting with a strength. So that would sound something like this. Again, I'm really proud of my ability to do X, but under this particular circumstance, I recognize that that strength is actually a weakness, and here's why. So what I do in those situations is this. So see how that starts on the positive, goes into the negative, and ends on the positive using that negative sandwich model.
The next question that we want to cover is one people get a lot. Why should we hire you? So let's go through the translation first. What they want to find out is please summarize the top qualifications you have for the job and what makes you unique. Also, they're wondering, I want to get additional information to help me determine if you're going to be a good fit for the job. Now, this is your chance to sell yourself, your skills, your knowledge, and your experience. So you want to make sure you take advantage of this. So here are some ways to answer it. First of all, think about it from their point of view. Again, obviously you want the job, but what are they looking for? And what you want to try is to describe the top 3 to 5 areas of skills or knowledge and experience that makes you an ideal fit. And then here's something that most people don't do. You want to talk about the unique combination you bring. I not only have A and B, but I also have C and D. And you might think, well, that's obvious that I have something that's unusual. Make sure that you clearly state it because after you state it, they'll suddenly think, huh, oh, wow, maybe it will be hard to find somebody else because you want them to get the message. It's going to be difficult to find that unique combination in another candidate, and that's why they'll want to choose you. At the end of most interviews, you'll get this question. What questions do you have? And the translation is, what are you interested in learning more about? Do you care more about our benefits and our time off policy? Or are you so interested in this job, our team, and our company that you have questions about them? So before I get into the questions, I want to address something that comes up a lot. Sometimes people say, oh, I'm not sure that I should ask questions. The answer is you absolutely should be prepared for questions. Because if you don't ask any questions, again, they're going to think, oh, maybe you're not so interested in this job. So you always want to prepare some questions. In addition, you don't want to ask questions about benefit or salary or time off, because again, then they're just going to think, oh, you don't care about this job. You just care about something else. You just care about vacation policy. Now, there will be time to ask that later on after you've been offered the job, but don't ask it in one of the first interviews. Now, here's how you answer this. First, always have the questions prepared to show you did research on the company and your interest in the job. So that gets back to the fact that you should do a lot of preparation. Find out what the company is talking about on their website. Find out what's going on in the news so you can ask them questions if it's something positive. If it's something negative, I wouldn't ask the question about it. The other thing you want to do is ask the questions based on the interviewer's role. And by that, I mean sometimes you're interviewing with somebody, let's say in HR. So they're not going to have specifics about the job. Sometimes you're going to be interviewing with the manager. With them, you're going to ask more questions about the job, about the future projects you're going to be working on, about the team. But when you're dealing with somebody in human resources, you want to ask some more general questions, maybe about the company. Or you can ask my favorite question, which is, tell me what you like most about working at this company. But there are a number of different questions you can ask, but the whole point is you should be prepared. So that was chapter 2 in interview speak. Let's talk about what's next. Next time, we're going to talk about interview skills questions. We're going to help you to answer questions in different areas like approachability, credibility, humility, influence and gaining support, conflict management. And if you haven't gotten the book yet, again, you can get a 40% discount at our publisher, Manning.com, with the code InterviewHelp. We look forward to seeing you at the next video.